Yo, what's up guys, it's NLW Figs here, back again with another video. Now this week, we're seeing the end of Raw and Smackdown Rebooked on the main channel. Now, a lot of you have asked why. Simply, the main reason is that I've just not got a lot of time to do it, and it's not something that I'm enjoying doing at the moment, what with constant WWE releases, and also struggling to come up with new ideas for the series. However, there are some big ideas that I was planning on doing had the series continued, and since there is a lot of questions coming out of the Raw and Smackdown Rebooked episodes coming out this week on the channel, I thought it would be a fun video idea to tell you 5 of the main things that I was planning to do with Raw and Smackdown Rebooked, and also 5 things that I would implement on the actual WWE roster. But before I get into those things, make sure you like the video if you enjoy, and subscribe to NLW Figs for more wrestling figure content, and comment down below what you would have liked to have seen in the WWE Smackdown and Raw Rebooked series if it had continued. Comment those thoughts down below. But you know what, we'll start off with number 1, and we'll start with the Tribal Chief himself, Roman Reigns. Now, of course, on my show, he was the Tribal Chief, he was the Universal Champion, unstoppable, as he was in real life, joined up by the Usos, and the reason I kept that as a unit in the Rebooked series was because that, in real life, you know, I think that Roman Reigns is one of the better parts of WWE TV. One thing that I would have changed about his reign, though, is a more varied array of opponents. So, as you saw, he was going to face Ricochet. So that's actually coming out tomorrow. It's going to be Ricochet and the Viking Raiders versus the Bloodline. Unfortunately, I didn't get to film the Reigns versus Ricochet match that I was building towards, but had I did build towards it, it would have been a star-making performance for Ricochet, and I think that's what people need when they go up against Roman Reigns in real life, you know? I think that there's a bunch of guys on that roster, for instance, you know, Ricochet, as I mentioned, and more that could benefit from being in there with the Tribal Chief. So what I was planning on doing was having Ricochet lose this match, but look like a star afterwards and just keep winning, and then after this, there were a bunch of feuds I had planned. I was going to have Jeff Hardy face Roman Reigns in a TLC match. I was going to have Shinsuke Nakamura go after Roman in a title for title scenario too, but also at that WrestleMania that I was planning on building towards, it was going to be Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. Yes, this is something that I feel like should have been implemented on the main roster, because Drew McIntyre at the moment, he's stuck in a feud with Baron Corbin and not many people care, but I think he's deserved a title shot for a while now, so him versus Roman I could definitely see happening. But another thing that I was also planning on doing on the Smackdown Rebooked series in the short term was introducing Tommaso Ciampa as a character, as the NXT champion for a title versus title kind of thing with Roman Reigns, and this would have seen Ciampa go after Roman in a variety of ways. He would have needed him through the Titantron screen. There are a bunch of big angles I was going to do, and then it would ultimately end in Roman beating Ciampa, but it would still showcase NXT on the main show, so that's where I was kind of heading with the Roman Reigns stuff. Over on Raw, we had another title feud about to be made, and this is something that was going to be aired, but I didn't end up airing it. I actually shot an angle for it, so it was Keith Lee. He was the United States Champion on my Raw Rebooked series, and as you saw on this past week, he beat Big E. But what you didn't see, what happened after that matchup. So this is what I filmed. I basically was going to set something up where Seth Rollins was going to attack Keith Lee and go after the United States Championship, but then accidentally hit Mia Yim, and this would kind of spark a lot of tension between the two, because obviously Keith Lee and Mia Yim, they're married, so this would have seen Seth Rollins kind of taunting and getting into the psychological mind games of Keith Lee, and it would ultimately lead to Keith Lee winning the feud in the end, and then Seth Rollins would go on and do other things. But I thought this would have been like an interesting kind of, I don't know, Ruthless Aggression Attitude Era type scenario for the both of them to be in, and that's why I thought they could have banger matches together. So yeah, ultimately didn't happen in Raw Rebooked. However, you never know, you may see it in NLW at some point in the near future, who knows. But that's what was going to happen on that side of things. But we'll stick with Raw, and we'll go with what would have happened with the Raw Women's Championship scene. So as you saw, I kept the title on Rhea Ripley. If I was booking WWE, which obviously I'm not, but in the Raw Rebooked series, I would have kept Rhea Ripley dominant until the next year's WrestleMania, which is exactly what I was planning. So in my series, she beat Asuka, she beat Nikki Cross, she beat Alexa Bliss, and there was a couple of people that she hadn't faced yet. So I was going to lead it to Liv Morgan actually getting a shot at Rhea Ripley. She'd lose like she did in real life to Becky Lynch, and ultimately become a bigger star because of it, because she was in there with the the main champion and held her own. But after this, you were going to see the makings of a continuation of Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. And obviously they're doing that in real life now, but I was going to have it kind of culminate a little bit earlier without the championship involved. So what was going to happen between Bianca and Becky was that there was going to be a no disqualification match I decided to have, and it would end with Bianca finally beating Becky Lynch and then going and challenging Rhea Ripley for the championship at WrestleMania, whatever you want to call it. So Bianca and Rhea would have been on the cards, and then that would be the moment where Bianca finally won back the Women's Championship. Then we'd go on to face the likes of, Carmella, Rhea Ripley again, and beat Becky Lynch again. So that was where that story was heading. It was ultimately an idea to get Rhea over as the dominant champion and then have Bianca take that belt from her, which I thought would have been a nicer touch. And number 4 on my list of things that should have happened was the SmackDown Women's title scene. Now, throughout the SmackDown Rebooked series, which, let's face it, only lasted, 2 episodes? 3 if you count tomorrow's episode coming out. But it was going to have a tournament, so I showed, I think it was Toni Storm beating Natalya, so she would have been one of the people to go to a SmackDown title match, and the second person that would have gone to that SmackDown title match would have been Shayna Baszler, and they would have main evented SmackDown. It was going to be, one of my bigger matches, Storm versus Baszler, kind of a NXT type matchup, if you see what I mean. So that would have had Toni Storm losing, but Shayna winning, but ultimately Toni Storm would have won the title at a big pay-per-view, perhaps like WrestleMania, and then she would have been, the main babyface champion. But before then, Shayna would have gone on a roll, beating the likes of Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, and the like, because I think that Shayna really deserves it. In fact, on the main roster right now, I think that Shayna is the one who should be the next champion, not necessarily Ronda Rousey, and then maybe you should have Rousey and Shayna team up, or maybe even feud, who knows. But that was another thing as well, because obviously at the Rumble time, around then when Ronda came back in real life, I was thinking maybe I should bring Ronda in to the SmackDown Fed, but I was planning on having her and Shayna kind of alongside each other, and then they would end up having a blow-off match. But the plan was always to have Toni Storm be the kind of centerpiece of that SmackDown women's title scene. So yeah, it's unfortunate though, because obviously in WWE at the moment, not a lot of strong women there in terms of like star power, so it's difficult to kind of book around that in the Rebooked series, which, with the limited roster getting even smaller, that's another reason why I decided to end it a little bit early. And you know what, let's end this video with number 5 on my list of plans that didn't come to fruition. It is the main story on Raw, the WWE Championship. As you know, I put the title on Riddle. He and Randy Orton were the Raw Tag Team Champions in my Rebooked series, so where this was heading was actually a lot of different storyline threads, so you'll bear with me. Obviously on the Raw Rebooked, you saw the Demon Finn Balor come out and save AJ Styles. I was going to have a mini kind of Bullet Club reunion between Styles and Balor as a tag team, and Edge would come back down the line and try and find out who attacked him. And it turns out that everyone's blaming AJ Styles because obviously he was a heel before, but it turns out that Finn Balor was the one who won the, or actually attacked Edge and tried to get into the title scene for himself. So the Demon Balor would take this kind of villainous origin a little bit more, and even potentially go and win the WWE Championship. There was also a bunch of other plans in the works, the main one being that I would have had Brock Lesnar come back and challenge Riddle for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Of course, they've got their real life Twitter beef, so how likely it's going to be that they actually have a match on the main show in real life, who knows. But in Rebooked, Raw Rebooked, I definitely wanted to have Riddle versus Lesnar definitively. In terms of Orton and Riddle, I know that the obvious thing would be to break them up and have them face each other, but if I was ever going to have them face each other, they would be friends afterwards. Like, I think that that's too good to split up as a tag team. And even when Riddle, whenever he would have lost the championship in my Rebooked series, I still wanted to have Orton and Riddle as tag team champions and kind of dominant in that way. So yeah, there was a bunch of stuff I really wanted to do with Lesnar and Riddle, a bunch of like shoot fighting segments and things of that nature. The Hurt Business would have gone and feuded with whoever, who knows. Like, I think I probably would have had them feud with another star faction on Raw, whoever that may have been. But yeah, there was a bunch of ideas that I had and ultimately didn't come to fruition just because, yeah, like I said, the roster was thinning in WWE in real life, so that meant that I had to keep changing my plans week to week. You know, I had stuff like Karrion Kross getting a big push. I had the likes of Jeff Hardy going into this kind of like Willow type state where he would go a bit crazy and go after Drew McIntyre. So there are a bunch of stories that would have happened had those people not been released in real life. But that's why I'm starting my new NLW Ruthless series. So it's going to be very similar to Raw and SmackDown Rebooked, except it will be based on the Ruthless Aggression era with the same rosters, the Jax figures, and just really a lot more kind of creativity to it and less restrictions on what I can do storyline wise, because yeah, I did enjoy trying to work within the constraints, but ultimately it just became too much when too many people started getting released, you know. But yeah, that's what I was planning on doing with Raw and SmackDown Rebooked. But comment down below if there's anything you want to know, like is there any storyline you want to know the direction that it was heading in, or any wrestler that you want to know what plans I would have had for them on Raw or SmackDown Rebooked. Let me know in those comments below. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to NLW Figs for more wrestling figure content, and catch SmackDown Rebooked, the finale, on the main channel tomorrow. That's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.